Good morning and welcome back. We're running a tad bit late, so I'll keep my remarks very brief. For most of the folks in the room, you've gone through a fair amount of education, and I say fair amount because coming from Jamaica, where we would go to high school back when I was there at 10, and often you don't get out into the workforce until you're in your mid-20s. What the system has done here in the United States is what most of us would try to emulate when we were out of the United States. And the reason I harp on fair amount of education is that if you think of epistemology, right, where we not just think about how we think, but go back to why we think the way we think. And you look at a lot of the social constructs. If I go back 130 years or so, Darwin sort of put out his theory. And after Darwin put out his theory, there was a guy, British author, Spencer, and he sort of made popular the notion of social Darwinism, where we sort of took the concept of survival of the fittest, right, and that's how we're going to run society. To be honest, in the business world, and I was in business for a little bit as a programmer and then came to education, that concept is still sort of there, right, the social Darwinistic concept of survival of the fittest. Well, we're in education. We're about equity, we're about level playing fields, and we, over time, and a big movement started in the 40s, 50s, took off in the 60s, helped develop the community college, GI Bill, and all that stuff. And we started to think about an equity agenda, and we started to think about making sure that everyone has what I would call a fair amount of education. You do need an educated population to take care of the needs of an advanced society. And when I look back at what we've done in this district, and some of it came, you know, with directives from the state, and I've been here since 2012, the RP group with the Student Success Initiative kicked off a fair amount of change. In order to take care of students, we wanted to provide wraparound services. So matriculation got renamed, you know, Student Success and Support Services. We now make sure students have academic plans. There's a penalty at priority registration if they don't do their academic planning. We're trying to move to a point where what was considered a high level of education achievement is now going to be the norm, a fair amount of education achievement and attainment. So the Guided Pathways movement, I know some of the physics people were here. I think in terms of, you know, epistemic opacity. What that means is there's some cloudiness in terms of how we're thinking. And I'm charging this group of faculty leaders, and they're devoted faculty leaders, to help us get through some of that opacity over this year, so that by next academic year, we will move, you know, the needle a fair amount. Now, I'm looking around the room and I see my academic senate president, and I see classified leaders, and I see faculty members who are all part of this movement. What I would implore you to do is take some of this stuff back to your school and department meetings that you're having either today or tomorrow, and let's all try to push, sort out some of the things that are vague. Let's all try to make sure our thinking is clear so that we can make some progress this year to be prepared to move the entire organization next year. With that, I'd like to introduce Rupa, Brent, and Rebecca to talk to us about Guided Pathways.
Good morning. I'm Rebecca. I'm from the English department. I'm going to go ahead and get us started really quickly here. So we had 5 basic talking points we wanted to bring up. What is Guided Pathways? How is it organized here at IVC currently? What are some of the challenges students are facing? How can we use guided pathways to overcome these challenges? And what can we begin doing right now? So our short definition is that guided pathways is an umbrella term meant to encapsulate all of the innovative programs that are already going on campus. But a longer definition is that it is a framework we can use to help students make good decisions for themselves, to improve rates of college completion, improve rates of transfer, aid students in getting the jobs that have value in the market and will give them a livable wage, and then, of course, applying equity in all of these outcomes. So there are some things we need to consider. First is that guided pathways is an iterative process. So we are going to try things and they will work or they won't work, and we will change those things as we go. We have to constantly monitor them. We have to measure them, look at the data, make sure we're doing the right things, and then adjust as we need to. It should be our invention. It should match the goals of what we have set here at IVC. The way Guided Pathways works here does not need to be the same way it works somewhere else. It should be unique to our campus and the unique needs that we have. And we want to make sure that we're using it to eliminate barriers, to streamline existing processes, eliminate gaps in services, and better communicate across campus what's going on. Currently, we are organized into two main groups. We have our Academic Senate Guided Pathways Work Group, and we have our Oversight Work Group, and those kind of bridged by our Guided Pathways coordinators. What we're looking to unfold this fall is creating a larger Guided Pathways design team that brings everybody in across campus to have a voice in what's going on. Some of the challenges that we currently face is perception problems, right? What we think is going on is not necessarily how students think about things that are going on. We have issues still with completion for as well as that we are doing as a campus. We can do better. We have a timeliness of completion challenge, a cost of completion challenge, and we are still facing a lot of equity gaps. So the first challenges that we have are perception issues. How do we versus the students feel about higher education, and how are we versus the students feeling about their experience overall in college? So when we think about our perception of higher education, we talk to faculty, we talk to staff, those of us who've already finished our education, we typically think of college as a place of exploration. It is a place to be exposed to new ideas and new points of view and different cultures, and to learn about ourselves. And the truth is that we are right. We are right, those views are true. That is what college does, but our students tend to focus a little bit differently. They think that college is the path to a stable and fulfilling career, one that pays a livable plus wage. And while they would also agree with our view, and while we also agree with their view, that changes the way we think about how we make decisions, because we have different goals than they might have. We have a different way of communicating the benefits of our courses and our programs to them that might be meaningful to them. It changes the way we make decisions, and it changes the way we provide support. The second perception issue I think that we have is that we often tend to view college, or the process and experience of college, as very linear. And our students basically, they pick our college, they enroll, they apply. We used to have assessment, that's going away. Our AB 705 people will talk about that after the break. They go to orientation, they register for classes, they start going to classes, and at some point they are done taking their class and they've met their goals. The problem is that we have a lot of exit points in each of these steps, and it is not very linear. So to students, it often feels like this. They don't really know where to start. On here, it looks like there's a lot of different places to start, and they don't always know which way to go. And so what is the reality? Well, that's a really good question, is that we don't actually know either. Certain people in different parts of campus have better ideas of what the student experience is, but what it is for the student overall is not clear, and it's something that we kind of need to figure out.
Thank you. So what I want to show is just a few of the slides. We've got some data. Loris did an excellent job getting us some of the data that we can look at to see really what our issues are. So we know we're the #1 transfer community college in the state, but when we look at the numbers, they're not all that great. We can look, And we can see for the 2-year outcomes, these are all individual cohorts of students. So the 2011, 2012, these are students that had started 2 years beforehand. The 2012, 2013, they started 2 years beforehand. So these all represent different cohorts of students. And you can see the line's pretty flat. And after 2 years, we're a 2-year school, 16.6% was our latest number of the students that actually transferred after 2 years. To me, not as great as we would like, obviously. We extended out to 6 years. The percentages are higher, almost 60% transfer. We've talked before today about part of our new budgeting formula is based on degrees. Well, if we look at degrees, the yellow bar, 30% of students have got a degree after 6 years for a 2-year institution. We see we can do a lot better than this. So we usually think, hey, we're doing fantastic. The truth is, compared to a lot of the other colleges, we are. But to the 40% of students that didn't transfer after 6 years, they're not thinking we're doing that fantastic of a job. So we do have some improvements we can make, and we honestly owe it to our students. So this is one talking about the timeliness of completion, again, being based that we're a 2-year university, college. We've got full-time, majority full-time. Now full-time, what that would represent, that's a student that's been 12 units or more every single semester, and in this case for 2 years, we're gonna have a 6-year slide as well. Majority of full-time, they would have been for the 4 primary semesters, they would have been 3 or 4 of the semesters. Majority part-time would be 50% or less full-time. And again, we see the numbers not fantastic. 6-year transfer rates, again, based on the same idea. Again, the numbers not as big as, not as high as we would like them to be, obviously. So we can go back. So to challenge the cost of completion. What's the cost to our students? Well, time to transfer for full-time students, average about 2.9 years. And Loris, is this average or median? Okay, so our average times to get the degree, 3.1 year. Again, we can make arguments about whether that's a good or a bad number, but being that it's a 2-year degree that they just earned, and the average is over 3 years, I'm from math, that's over a 50% increase in time. And then we look at down units to transfer, and they had talked about statewide what some of the averages are. For to transfer, 70.6, to get a degree, 81 units for a 60-unit degree oftentimes. And then the extra costs incurred. This doesn't include opportunity costs, the costs that students would make if they were in the workplace working. This is just out-of-pocket expenses. If you're a non-resident, about $23,000. If you're living at home, still $11,000. This is typically for that extra year, those extra units that the students are taking. And then we had talked a lot about the equity gaps. The blue line represents white and Asian students. The yellow one, the underrepresented minority students, primarily students of color. So we look here, and these are the gaps that we want to close. AB 705, which we'll talk about after the break, is going to help a lot because a lot of the underrepresented minorities would test into lower classes, and it would take them a much longer time to get to the transferable classes, especially in math and English. If we can close those gaps, start them a little bit higher, provide them the support they need to be successful. And then we see again, here's the gaps. And sometimes it gets bigger, sometimes it gets a little bit closer. But the goal, one of the statewide goals, is we want to start closing that gap and eventually get it so there's not really a distinction between the two sets of students. Again, for certificates, similar things. These are pretty low, but they look very close. And when I thought about it before, I thought, well, these are pretty close. But going from, say, 7.4% to 11%, that's close to a 50% difference. So definitely some things we want to work on. And then we've got another one, 6-year certificate achievement rates. You can see sometimes the white and Asian was above, sometimes the underrepresented minority was actually above. So on some of the things with the certificates, apparently we're doing a better job. And then I'm going to turn it over to Rupa to talk about some other things.
Okay, wonderful. So we wanted to tell you what some of the challenges are. You've heard of some of the challenges of guided pathways, but we need to really address those challenges and address them head on, and that's where we need your help here. So we need to really understand the student experience. We need to make sure that students are learning and make sure that we have programs and curriculum in which the students can actually complete those in a timely manner. Here are the wonderful things that we're doing here at IVC. We've been doing some of these things for many, many years, and that's one of the reasons why we were chosen as one of the 30 AACC guided pathways colleges to participate in. But we've been doing wonderful things here, all the way from My Academic Plan to ANAPESY to AB 705, high school pathways, university pathways. So we've been doing so much, and we could probably fill another slide with a smaller font with all the wonderful things we're doing. So we should congratulate ourselves on what we've done and accomplished. What are we planning? Well, we need to continue with our professional development. The Guided Pathways coordinators have talked about how we can get more training out there, more training for faculty, staff, and administrators. We're going to, as Rebecca said, form a design team for Guided Pathways, and we want involvement from everybody. We don't just want faculty, we need administrators, we need classified there, we need students as well to hear their perspective. We want to continue to work with students. They are currently, as Rebecca said, part of the Academic Senate work group. They're part of the oversight work group, but we really need them involved in the design team and all the different areas that Guided Pathways is going to touch. We're going to continue research with the help of Loris and his wonderful research team there to close those gaps that Brent just talked about. The interest areas, you've heard about major maps, you've heard about meta majors. So we like the term interest areas. That's what the feedback that we've gotten. We're going to talk more about interest areas in the design teams, and we are going to be coming to the discipline faculty to look at those first year maps. We're going to focus on first year. What do students need to take in the first year, and how is that similar between the different majors, perhaps within their school? So we're going to be coming for that mapping exercise. And then, of course, we're going to get help from Diane Oak's team with the marketing and communication efforts. So what can all of us do right now? The first thing we can do is actually listen to our students, listen to their stories. We can provide information in the syllabi. For example, everybody kind of rolls over their syllabi from year to year, but there's 2 small changes that I made in mine. One of the ones that I made was Rebecca wrote a wonderful paragraph about the importance of actually earning a certificate. So a lot of our students, as you could see from the data, they transfer, but they transfer without some kind of a degree. So I put a little paragraph in there about the importance of getting an AA degree or getting a certificate in the syllabus, and with an actual link of how they can do that. So consider that. And then another thing you can do is really stress the importance of them seeing a counselor, them coming to your office hours, the students making the connection not only to you but to other student peers. So that's really important in their completion agenda. Also talk to other colleagues, talk to other faculty, talk to other staff members, talk to students about their perceptions and about what students are telling them. So we have a wonderful system called EASY. How many of you have actually used the EASY system here? Can I get a show of hands? Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, so some of you have and some of you haven't. EASY is a wonderful tool designed by a lot of wonderful people, including our counselors and faculty members. So let's say that I had a student who missed a couple of assignments. You can go onto the EASY system, and it's through My Site. You go to My Site and then to the class schedule, whatever your class schedule is, and then off to the right-hand side next to your classes, you'll see something that's called Progress Report. And the wonderful thing about Easy is you can tell the students, as well as their counselors, how they're doing in the class without actually having a report card at the end of the semester. So you can tell them, oh, you know what, you've been missing a lot of class. What can we do to help you with that? You've missed the last few homework assignments. And then when they go see the counselors can also help them and say, hey, what's going on? Is there some support services that we can provide to you to help you kind of get over this challenge this semester? The other part of Easy, which I think is wonderful, is not only the negative reinforcement, but the positive reinforcement. So they have wonderful positive sentences or two that you can easily convey to the students through the Easy system about how good they're doing. And it's good to get that positive reinforcement for students as well as the little help along the way. We also have wonderful support services. We assume that the students all know. The faculty think, oh, the students all know about the wonderful wraparound services that we have here at IVC. But it's important for us faculty to let them know that. In fact, I've included some of the links on my syllabus now. The Student Success Center, as an example, the Math Center, the Writing Center, the Transfer Center, the Career Center, and I can go on and on. But it's important for us to also mention those wonderful services to our students, and not just to do it the first day of class, but maybe do it on week 7, and maybe do it on week 11, because they will forget as the semester goes on. And when they need it the most, if you happen to say it, that could help save a student. So I encourage all of you to join the Academic Senate Guided Pathways Work Group. We're going to meet on the first and the third Tuesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. in LSB 103. And we also have the Guided Pathways Design Team. We're going to actually launch this in October when we have our summit. So the summit is coming up on Friday, October 12th. Please do put that down on your calendars because we'd love to see each one of you there. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you, Rupa, Rebecca, and Brent. That was a great presentation. We obviously have our work cut out for us. So thank you again for all of your hard work. This is definitely a faculty-centric effort, and the work is amazing. Thank you for that. So following the break, you'll have the opportunity to congratulate some of your colleagues on receiving some awards. And then I will be releasing that very important and secret approach to enrollment management. Promise it'll only take about 3 minutes to do that, so don't be worried about that. Let's take a short break.